right, ladies and gentlemen, in this second panel discussion, we will focus on the future and we will dive into the key challenges that BIC faces and how it plans to shape a competitive and a sustainable circular bio-based industry in Europe. A first question goes to you, Rob. All people here share a common desire to see the bio-based industries thrive in Europe, fostering a circular and sustainable economy with reduced dependence on imported fossil feedstocks. And the European Commission often refers to this as, and we've heard it already today, bringing the bioeconomy from niche to norm. Now, throughout this year, BIC has been proactive, conducting a series of workshops with industry experts and with Commission representatives. And my question is, what key policy recommendations have emerged from these discussions to help turn that vision into reality?
Yeah, thanks for that. Should I use this? Yeah, it works?
Yeah.
Thanks for that question, Philip. So first of all, I think appreciation for the BIC team who set up those workshops and for you as companies participating in that together with the stakeholders from Commission and others. Yeah, the insights gained from those will be public, but they will be published today, so you'll receive those. Yes, it's about policies. It's of course also about investments, and quite often you hear the word level playing field coming back in these kind of discussions. And it's maybe not one level playing field, it's a level playing field between bio-based and fossil. It's a level playing field between biofuels and biomaterials. It's a level playing field between the US and China and then Europe in the bioeconomy. So we have different level playing fields and each come to the surface when you talk about policy measures that are needed to accelerate the bioeconomy in Europe. I think one of the most important things is clarity. So I think for companies to invest, it needs to be at least clear what the environment is in terms of policies. And sometimes policies are made that even have the good intention, but they work counterproductive. So it is important to have a clarity on policies. And these policies should be aimed at stimulating, at the primary case, the demand. Companies will invest in Europe when they foresee there is good demand for their products. And the supply is as key, of course. And then do we have right access to technologies? Do we have right access to funds? What is the conditions to funds? This is also very critical. But without market uptake, you can have your access to funds, but you will not be able to deliver on the promises, on the investments you make. So that I think you will be able to read the policy documents. There's much more in that what I tell here today. But yes, we look forward to it, but a lot of things need to happen in order to accelerate the bioeconomy.
Yeah. All right. Okay. The next question is for you, Sophie. Let me give the microphone to you. Here you are. So you are the CEO. Let me just move my chair a little bit. You are the CEO of a spin-off, and you probably observed different obstacles compared to a large multinational. Can you share the significant hurdles you faced when establishing your innovative company, and what recommendations would you offer based on those experiences?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, a main challenge is of course gaining visibility and credibility, so thanks for inviting us here. It's really an honor to be here as a startup that still has to prove a lot. There are many challenges indeed, but I will focus maybe on two because it will take us too long if I have to tackle all of them.
Thank you.
Policy, I think, can be really a game changer. For us, we work with side and waste streams. We develop new products that we want to bring to the market. We need partnerships for that, so that is already very well covered within BIC and CBE, BBI. But then to bring that product to market, you need to do a really long checklist, and their policy can make a change. It was mentioned before, fossil versus bio. If there can be some incentive for bio, that can really make a dramatic difference for startups having innovative technologies at hand. Also registration of new molecules, it's extremely difficult, timely, costs a lot of money, while the rules are the same for bio-based and fossil-based still. So also there, yeah, it could be really pushing for bio if that could be incentivized through policy. And then of course there's funding, it has been mentioned. Yeah, a lot of our time we spend on chasing money. Unfortunately, we cannot spend that much time in the lab working on the technology, so that's a bit of a pity. But of course it's necessary. And there, of course, initiative is fantastic already, so I don't want to be too negative, but I was asked for recommendations. What is a bit a pity is that you have to spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on writing these proposals. You still have a big chance that it doesn't get granted. And it's really an extensive work that goes into it. So if there could be some recommendation there to make it less extensive and maybe to organize it differently in the future, that could really make a dramatic change for startups. And then maybe one last thing is on the funding schemes. It was changed. In the past, SMEs got higher funding rates than bigger enterprises, which in a way is also logical. But that has now changed. So that could also be a way of helping SMEs, because if we need to find the 40% of the project budget ourselves, we also need to talk to investors, and we don't have recurring revenues yet. So it is exactly what was said. We're constantly chasing the money, and it's nice that you're there. It's really helpful, but there are some things that could maybe even be improved. So thanks a lot.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that brings me to a question for Barna. Barna, as you know, a substantial challenge is the relatively slower adoption of bioeconomy policies, innovations, investments in certain Central and Eastern European countries. That is, for instance, reflected in the lower participation in European research and innovation programs. However, the opportunities are there, with ample feedstock supply, a robust agricultural sector, and also financial opportunities, notably through the regional development funds. Now, what could be done, in your idea, to accelerate progress in that regard?
Thank you for the invitation. I was just thinking to start as my predecessor in this chair, John Bell, was saying, no, I don't know what to answer. No, actually, since I am in the field, as you were saying, since 2009, basically when it was started, 2010, when it was started to develop the EU bioeconomy strategy, we saw that Eastern Europe is not participating on that. And now you mentioned several positive things, like we have a feedstock and there are some funds and regional development fund, cohesion funds. But I'm asking whether it's there or really there. So if you ask me, let me bring some concrete issues on the table with mentioning like how we can see the future, how we can improve the Eastern European participation in the future. With the Regional Development Fund, to take it this. We saw that in the past 10 years, past 5 years, and then now, there was a CAP, Common Agriculture Policy. And just a positive example, it was called AKIS, Agriculture Knowledge and Innovation System. It was a tiny measure, was introduced 10 years ago. And then it was growing up with the policy and implemented in each member state. And today it's a big innovation action, and each country it's implementing. A few years ago was introduced the bioeconomy in the CAP, in the Common Agriculture Policy, as a specific measure. And everybody could ask now today what happened with the Common Agriculture Policy. And actually we start to see that in each country, even in those countries where there were no bioeconomy strategy, they started to implement. And now I am answering your question, what we can do with the regional funds and other EU funds. Today there is a measure, or there is actually an objective, we have to be green and digital. Is it enough to say green and digital? Or we should say precisely we need bioeconomy. We need some principles on bioeconomy to be there. And then in each fund which is managed by the member state, it can be better implemented. We can start with a small step, putting there the stick, the trigger, that we can have bioeconomy projects, and then you can use it. Otherwise, if you are taking now, it's not an opportunity, or not at least in an immediate opportunity for the bioeconomy. It's there, green and digital, and the countries will spend, for them it's green and digital, or greener, even to spend in fossil technology, which is a little bit greener than the previous one. So we need to introduce in the policy, and I fully agree, we need policy. And my second message would be a little bit on the political level, taking the ownership and a little bit hiring the bioeconomy on the political agenda. It's not there. And probably for the future, we need to see this as a higher priority on bioeconomy, on the political agenda, and then also those countries where there is no bioeconomy as such, as strategic thinking or action plan, which in every day I feel the startups are complaining to me that in Eastern Europe, since there is no political priority on bioeconomy, they cannot invest, they cannot go after that track. And there I see an opportunity for us, and there I see that even without having a political priority, if we start to invest and we start to buy the companies to be as development programs, bioeconomy development program, national level, that could help a lot. So there I see an opportunity, and there is the opportunity, but not yet there in Eastern Europe, still hoping for the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Valuable suggestions, Barna. Thank you. The next question is for you, Christian Patermann. I believe it's fair to say that many of you here in the conference room see you as the father of the modern bioeconomy in Europe. And Europe saw a huge evolution from technology platforms via the so-called knowledge-based bioeconomy, stimulating research and innovation, and then culminating into a European bioeconomy strategy. However, the rest of the world is also not standing still. So the global landscape is indeed very dynamic, with numerous initiatives worldwide being implemented more swiftly than here in Europe, where progress can indeed be slow or too slow. Now, how do you view this international evolution, and what steps can or should Europe take to stay in the running and to remain competitive?
Well, thank you. There are two questions, okay?
That's correct.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me as a kind of ear and also eyewitness of the development, and I congratulate Dirk and his team with all my heart for your success. Thank you very much, and many happy returns. Now, the first question, against the background of the pandemic and in its aftermath, I never expected that we all of a sudden had a tremendously dynamic development of the bioeconomy, mostly outside Europe. During the last 18 to 20 months, we have seen the entry and re-entry of the United States, with already mentioned executive order of biomanufacturing and biotechnology for safe and sustainable bioeconomy in America. We see the first time ever the national plan of China from the bioeconomy, long time, long see. We see that President Modi in India has announced a national plan for biomanufacturing that he, as a first time ever, has got through in the G20 an own document on the bioeconomy, which is more than worthwhile to read. And so let's wait what will happen there. And then President Lula not only invited for the COP 2025 to Belém in the state of Pará, which has its own, now at the first Brazilian state, an own bioeconomy strategy. And now very recently, just $250 million of US dollars were set for bio-based products in Amazonia by the IDP and the Banco do Brasil. Tremendously dynamic. That doesn't mean that Europe is bad. We still have a very good pole position. There's no other continent in which there are more biorefineries being operating, being constructed and planned And the world is envying us for CBE and BIC, let's say that. And on the other hand, we are also still the home of, let me see, the global hubs like the Bioeconomy Summit, etc. But in quite a few practical areas, the rest of Europe is running away. I only mentioned PLA, PHA, where in China you have more than half a dozen already operating facilities and another 12 to 18 are being built. And when you look on what is happening also in Singapore on alternate proteins, we really have to do our best to keep that up. And I'm not talking also on other subjects. So we have to see that we are sharing this dynamism. But I think there are good position points to do that, if you permit me to give you and share with you some thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that in 2 years we might celebrate 20 years of the bioeconomy in Europe. And why is not that a chance for an updated, bold, new bioeconomy strategy under the Danish presidency in the second half of 2025? And second, we should very carefully look on the priorities of the other continents, of the other giants who now re-entered or entered, and not to copy them, but to cope with them, and then very bluntly cherry pick what is good for us. And I have there quite a topic, quite a bouquet of interesting things we should think about, from biosafety, biosecurity as an issue, the relevance of norms and standards which are completely lost, and then the very, very emerging, interesting role of biotechnology and also of synthetic biology Jim Philp has mentioned. So let's think about that and take what is really good for us. And the third thought, we should really abolish the antagonism between circular and bio. No one understands that. And I give you one practical example from the very, very last week. In Bonn, we had a large conference on the International Conference on the Chemical Management. And a big topic was their toxicity of chemicals. And there was no doubt about that, that only with recycling we will not be able to cope with that. We need biological resources. So the fact is that bio and circular complement each other. And the European Environmental Agency said that wonderful, qualifying it as a tandem under the umbrella of the sustainability. And we should really stop, let me say this, antagonism. And the fourth point is we always query in Europe that the bioeconomy is not known among people. That's right. But in many cases, neither science nor industry calls bio-based what is bio-based. So I would wish that there is a little more boldness in really qualifying the products of the bioeconomy. And the last point I'd like to bring up is we really need new thinking on funding. And I'm so happy that Jim Philp brought up the TRL business, you know. Mm-hmm. It is time for us now, when you look outside Europe, on the funding possibilities and opportunities which are used from Singapore to Brazil and from South Africa to China, to think about to what extent the TRL system, which can stay, had its impact on the preparedness to be funded by a variety of different organizations. We are much too strict there. And we should really take what Jim Philp said as a good base for rethinking to what extent we might not arrive at new ways of funding. The ECBEF can only fund from TRL 6 onwards. But what's about the rest? And don't we need many more interesting cooperative ventures in funding? And here BIC might have a new challenge. So these are some points, I think, with which we can easily counteract the dynamism of the rest of the continents and regain the trend-setting position we had 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I wish us good luck for it.
Okay, very valuable. Thank you, Christian. Isn't it a pity that you have retired? Isn't that a pity? Okay. Merja Penttilä, a question for you. We have a high level of academic research networks and research institutes in Europe dedicated to the bioeconomy. However, the challenge lies in scaling up these processes to make them commercially appealing and also competitive. Now, do you believe there is a need for additional actions? Are there any critical elements currently lacking? And it's again more than one question, from a scientific perspective, what recommendations would you propose to address this?
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I think it's quite good to continue from Christian's comments also. And I take now the liberty to talk about biotechnology, because that's my field, and it's raised in so many different bioeconomy strategies worldwide. And I believe, of course, myself that it will be an important element in the bioeconomy. And I sort of thought about a few points which are problems for biotechnology and synthetic biology for that matter. And first of all is the terminology. So people are mixing bioeconomy with biotechnology or biotechnology with bioeconomy. So the nature of biotechnology is not understood. And of course, I mean, this audience knows it, but in general, and that leaves, let's say that doesn't help in a way to try to explain what biotechnology is. And because biotechnology actually is the perfect example of circular bioeconomy, because in nature, I mean, all dead organic matter, heterogeneous organic matter, it's broken down, and the organisms, like microbes, will synthesize from that new chemistries, new structures, new intelligence, new sensors, all these incredible things which we have, and also in our own body. And this is circular bioeconomy. Sort of then you die and then you rebuild. And we know the mechanisms for that. We know the genes behind that. And now there is a huge opportunity, of course, to think about that. How could we use organic matter, heterogeneous, to do that? An extreme example, of course, is CO2. So organisms like plants, the primary producers, and algae, they can just use as a carbon source, simple CO2, and build all these different structures. And that's an amazing machinery, of course. So to understand that and try to then develop it so that it would be also economic, I think is the challenge. And one of the things I think in this bioeconomy or circular bioeconomy discussions are that how would one understand this concept, and also think about that, how could we think about the feedstock in a sort of systematic way or more at systems level. So what would it be good for? And so that we are not working in silos, and just in a way, when you discuss these things, even just to remind, hey, there is biotechnology, and if you have a very bad waste stream or side stream or whatever fraction which is not useful for other purposes, maybe biotechnology can convert that to something very specific when we do the gene engineering and synthetic biology. So that should be something I would like to sort of get on more on the agenda, sort of fair thinking. It doesn't work always necessarily, but at least that people would consider that. And that, of course, then sort of avoids maybe investments which would then exclude biotechnology. so that we would have a more dynamic system. And of course, this comes to waste regulations, what is waste, and also waste sorting and so on. So how you can do that so that you can see that, okay, if the sorting of waste would be done this way, you would actually have quite an ample amount of raw material. Mm-hmm. And then I would like to still raise one additional point, which I think from the academic side, I'm working in an institute which works a lot with industry, but sometimes or often the industry says that, oh yeah, but we would like to have it already at the level that you can go to piloting. And this is, of course, very difficult to do for universities or research organizations without extra funding. So it is a valley of death, I would think, as another one. BIC has successfully tackled, I think, towards the demonstration scale. But the valley of death of how to, from the numerous sort of research developments done where scientists have demonstrated production of this and that engineering cells to produce different kinds of chemicals, materials, even some of those which are made from fossil resources with biotechnology. But that they would need to be taken from TR level 3, 4 towards TR level 6. And I think that BCE at the moment at the European level is the only instrument where this is included in the RIA programs. The Horizon does not have industrial biotechnology. One call, or two calls every now and then. And we would need to have bigger projects to do it ambitiously, because it's no use to use money and do just incremental improvements. We would need to make a real ambitious target, what the titer should be, what the productivity should be. And so this is lacking. And in coupling to this development is also that in addition to the open platforms for piloting, which now maybe still lacking, but anyways are built, we would need to have open technology platforms for making the production strains. And this is the synthetic biology, and this I build test learn cycles, and to make it professionally. And one example of those is the IBISPA consortium at the European level, where we have sort of distributed good infrastructures from high throughput robotics up to smaller scale piloting, and we can then provide the services to academia, to SMEs and industries. There are, once again, regulations which prevent to offer these kind of services to industries, but maybe we can find ways to do that. So distributed biofoundries also is an answer. Okay. So yeah, so probably our time is gone, but I would just like to say as a final thing, so I think the bioeconomy really needs and deserves to have cutting-edge technologies used, not only for biotechnology, but for also for the other technologies, so that we can really have sustainable added value products out of bioeconomy.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. And if I look at the clock, we still have 2 minutes, and I would like to give them to you again, Christian. One extra question. If we want to bring the bioeconomy from niche to norm, especially within the framework of the European Green Deal, the net zero age, the EU strategic autonomy, what would be your top recommendation for the new Commission next year?
Do you permit?
It's working, it's working.
Do you permit me to have two?
Yes, if you can do that in 1 minute and a half, that would be fantastic.
Oh, that's no problem. So first, if there's a new commissioner and the new commission, there should be a portfolio description of the tasks. And until now, there has never been the description to whom belongs the bioeconomy. And I would very much like to have that for clarity. In the US, it's the White House. In Brazil, it's now a new state secretariat under the environmental ministry. And in India, it is the Ministry of Economic Affairs with the Department for Biotechnology. And the second one, all of you know the EPCEI, the International Projects of Common European Interests. And we talk about digitalization, we talk about artificial intelligence, about hydrogen, etc. We never talk about the emerging circular bio-based industries. And my wish is that the Commission has an initiative to introduce these emerging branches of industry also into the scope of ECPEI.
You just want to add something? Yeah, very quickly.
Just very quickly,
Yeah.
in the title of this event, it was mentioned that working for Europe, seeding for Europe. And this name is coming with a lot of responsibility. If you are saying Europe, then Europe as a whole. And we were not talking about Western Balkan, Ukraine, Moldova, which will join soon Europe. So there is a vast amount of biomass there. So should we think in the next term of the next Commission also in terms of embedding all Europe, so all Eastern part, and then thinking the role of Eastern Europe, the whole role of Eastern Europe in this whole bioeconomy, because that's vital, I think, for the future and also vital for the BIC. Thank you. Sorry for cutting the microphone.
No, that's okay.
It's close to me.
Time is so cruel, but I would like to thank the 5 panelists. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give them a warm applause. Yes.